On today's Locked On Giants podcast, we decode the New York Giants' Daniel dilemma by reading the tea leaves. What can we expect? And is there a light at the end of the tunnel? That's coming your way next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Trainer, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find my written work. And as always, welcome on in to my Blue Crew community members, my everydayers, my newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And if you are watching this video, the video part of our podcast on YouTube, please, if you haven't already done so, consider subscribing to the channel. Click the little notification bell so that you are notified every time I post a video. And if you wouldn't mind, like the video, it all helps in the long run. So it is appreciated. And those of you who choose to listen on the audio platforms, whether it's Apple, Google Play, Spotify, or whatever, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. That is also appreciated. Okay, on today's Locked On Giants podcast, the Daniel dilemma. The Giants have a dilemma with quarterback Daniel Jones, and I'm going to break that down for you, just kind of how we got to this point and where this is potentially headed based on information I had, based on reading the tea leaves, just using common sense, and just kind of try and make sense out of all this stuff. All right. And then in segment 2, believe it or not, there were some good flashes to come out of the debacle on Sunday. That was the Giants' regular season home opener against the Minnesota Vikings, and that good stuff, those good flashes. Well, I have a few, and I think once you hear them, you're going to maybe feel a little bit better about the future of the franchise. So that's your hint as to what I'm going to cover. And then in segment 3, one of my Blue Crew community members, Corey H., asked a question, and I have an opening, so I'm going to answer that question for Corey H. So that is our program for today. Again, thank you for dropping on in and spending some time with us. All right, let's talk about this Giants Daniel dilemma. All right, now, Daniel Jones, we can probably all agree, did not have a good game. His first game back from a torn ACL, suffered in week 9 of last year, he did not look good against the Minnesota Vikings. All right, he was jittery in the pocket. He was running himself into sacks and pressures. He was off target with his throws. He was, throwing the ball, missing receivers who were getting open. It was just a mess. Now, normally I would say, okay, look, one game, let's not push the panic button. But folks, it isn't just one game. All right. I hate to say it, but Daniel Jones picked up where he left off before he got his ACL injury last year. I mean, he was just not very consistent, not very good, looked jittery. And you sit there and you wonder if this guy at this point is going through the David Carr syndrome, which, David Carr was a highly touted quarterback prospect, drafted first overall for the Texans, played behind some really yicky offensive lines, didn't have everything around him set up, and he just became a damaged quarterback. His internal clock was smashed, and he just never lived up to his potential, which was very unfortunate. So David Carr then, of course, went on to be a backup. I think he, as a matter of fact, he came to the Giants for a little while, was a good backup for them, but he never materialized as a starter. With Daniel Jones, I think the handwriting has been on the wall ever since we saw Hard Knocks. All right. And I think the Giants know it. I think Daniel knows it. Now, I'm not saying Daniel is using this as an excuse, but the handwriting is like really on the wall. All right. So let's go back to Hard Knocks and what we learned. The Daniel at the time when Hard Knocks was being filmed, he was still recovering from his torn ACL. And the Giants brass was like, okay, We don't know how his recovery is going to go. Everybody's different. We've got to protect the organization. Folks, you don't protect the organization, and I use protect in quotes, by looking to trade draft assets to move up in the draft to get a premium quarterback pick. That to me screamed that they were willing to move on from Daniel Jones. All right. You protect yourself by bringing in a high quality backup, which, they can say that they did with Drew Lock. And, because they weren't able to trade up to get the quarterback they wanted in the draft, you know, they're basically pivoting and saying, okay, we're going to go with Malik Neighbors, who can hopefully be the missing piece for Daniel Jones to find success. But folks, in my opinion, the damage is done. All right. If you're Daniel Jones and you see, that they were trying to trade up to get your replacement, you're not going to be happy about that. All right. Now, try as you might, you try and put that out of your mind and you try and focus on stuff. But Daniel Jones is human. And I can't help but wonder if maybe in addition to his internal clock being off and his football skills just being kind of in tatters right now, I question whether his confidence is where it needs to be. Now, he'll sit there in front of the media and he'll say, I'm focused on doing my job. And if you go back and you look at the transcripts that came out of the pressers on Sunday after the game, there were no direct answers to the questions posed, both to Jones and to head coach Brian Daboll. All right, Daboll was asked about, how do you see Daniel Jones's confidence? And Daboll was like, we just got to get better. He was asked if he still has confidence in Daniel Jones. We just got to get better. Daboll's fallback answer. No direct response there. All right. So if you're ducking the question with a totally different answer, that to me screams volumes about what you think. So, here's the thing. I know a lot of fans out there are disgusted with Daniel Jones's play. A lot of people want to move on. I think what happened here is the Giants, because they weren't able to get the quarterback that they wanted, because, they figured, okay, you know what? Look, let's just see what happens. And plus the contract, let's not forget about that. They were basically stuck in giving Daniel Jones this year because look, he's got guaranteed money. They upgraded everything around him. And maybe the hope is, okay, look, maybe this guy can develop into a serviceable quarterback like he was in 2022. Maybe, it'll buy us time. And if it doesn't, and we, stink up the joint, maybe we're going to be in a better position now to get the quarterback we want come next year. Or so I just feel that that the handwriting's on the wall, that the Giants are going to move on from Daniel Jones. I mean, it would take an absolute 180-degree turn for the Giants to keep Daniel Jones beyond this year. And by 180 degrees, I'm talking about he's going to have to start looking like he did in 2022. Can he? I hope so. Because again, I have said this before. I don't like covering a losing team. I have done it now for the better part of a decade. It is not fun for me to come on during the season on a Monday show and have to break down everything that went wrong, that just puts you in a foul mood, a negative mood. That's not fun, folks. I'd rather talk about winning. I'd rather talk about all the good things that happen. But the reality is with Daniel Jones, I think it's inevitable. I think a divorce is coming between the two sides. And you know what? I don't know that would necessarily be the worst thing in the world if that were to happen. And I say that because before the season started, I was of the opinion that at some point Daniel Jones is going to need a fresh start. He's been screwed by the Giants, who admitted it. They didn't give him, a good offensive line. They didn't give him a good receiving core. They just didn't put enough talent around him. They kept changing the systems on him with different coaching staffs. To quote John Mara, they did everything possible to screw him up. And then, he comes back in here and you've got the new regime. And it's like, okay, this offseason he's going through rehab and they're looking to they're openly flirting with bringing in his replacement. Can you just imagine how Jones must have felt? How angry that must have made him after, if I'm him and I see that going on, I say, look, Where's your loyalty? I I've given you, what I can. You haven't supported me. Where the heck is your loyalty? So I just think that there's some, I guess, for lack of a better term, bad blood developing between Jones and the Giants to where a divorce is inevitable. And it's unfortunate. You would have liked to have seen him work out here, but between him being potentially damaged now from all the beatings he's taken, just his play, which again is not just limited to that one game against Minnesota. This has been going on now for the better part of the last 6 years now. All right. And this is a continuation from where he left off last year. So I just think a fresh start is going to benefit both sides. I really do. I think, the Giants are going to be heavily invested in looking for quarterbacks. Now, obviously, at this point, we don't know where they're going to be drafting, but we know that the Giants will potentially have some more draft assets. And as far as how long will the Giants stick with Daniel Jones? Now, Brian Dable was asked that question on Monday during his video call. He said he has, it didn't enter his mind that about replacing Daniel Jones. He's not going to change anything as far as, the snaps in practice go. He's going to stick with Daniel. And I'm going to harken back to 2019, Daniel's rookie year. Eli Manning, who was on the back nine of his career, but still, I think a lot of us can maybe agree that Eli Manning on the back nine of his career was better than Daniel Jones in the quote unquote prime of his career, at least right now. Eli Manning was benched after an 0-2 start. The Giants, just turning the keys over to a young Daniel Jones, who at the time showed some flashes, showed some hope that he might be able to lead this franchise for the next decade. Folks, I could see another scenario where if the Giants get absolutely destroyed on Sunday by the Washington Commanders, if you're Brian Dable, you got to start thinking about, do you want to stick with this guy even though you're technically still alive for a postseason berth? Or do you just say, okay, you know what? We're going to write it off. We're going to turn the page. We're not going to put him at risk for that injury, to trigger that injury guarantee in his contract. There's going to be a decision that's going to have to be made. Now, I think initially what the Giants wanted to do, they wanted to just ride Daniel Jones for as long as he was healthy and as long as they were competitive and they were in, again, the postseason hunt. If that doesn't happen, then they pull him, obviously. But again, the Giants are going to have a crossroad here. Do they keep with Jones if he continues to look like he did on Sunday, or do they turn the page? That's the question nobody knows the answer to. Maybe Brian Dable has an idea in his head. Maybe Joe Schoen has an idea in his head. But that's the question the Giants have to answer. And that's not an easy one to us, it might be an easy one. For them, not so much so. Okay, coming up next, believe it or not, there were some good things in the Giants' loss to the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to tell you what they are right after this. Hey, Giant fans. So, look, no man wants to lose his hair, but for men, it's actually very common. And now with Hims, the solution is very simple. Try Hims Hair Loss Solutions, and you'll be joining hundreds of thousands of subscribers who got their flow back. Hims makes treating hair loss simple with doctor-trusted treatment options and clinically proven ingredients like finasteride and minoxidil, all of which can help regrow hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. They offer personalized chewable oral spray and serum treatment options so that you can find what works best for you. The process is simple and 100% online. All you have to do is just answer a few questions, and a medical provider will determine if the treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your treatment is sent directly to your door. Hims has hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers. So if you feel like you're losing a part of yourself with your hair loss, get Hims and get your confidence back. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedonnfl. That's HIMS.com/lockedonnfl for your personalized hair loss treatment options. Hey, Giant fans, the new Locked On NFL is here. Locked On NFL is now 2 shows every day. First, the madman. Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On local experts, and you get unprecedented NFL insight. Hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all of that in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. Make the madman Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and coming up this week on Locked On Giants, of course, we have Crossover Thursday. As always, we do that during in-season. So David Harrison and I will be breaking down the upcoming Giants Week 2 game against the Washington Commanders. Also coming up, and I think this is going to be probably my Wednesday show, I'm going to be speaking with Cody Alexander, aka the Coach A. He is a defense expert, a football defensive expert, and I'm going to bring him on. We're going to talk a little bit about, the Giants defense. He's been studying the film on that, and I just want to, kind of pick his brain on, basically what he's seen. So pretty interesting guest I think he's going to be, and I hope you will enjoy that interview. All right, in this segment, I said there were some bright spots in the debacle that was the 28-6 loss to the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday. And folks, I gave you a little hint as to what they were. And basically I said, that the future would look bright if these particular players continue to develop. And I was talking about the 2024 Giants draft class. And I'm just going to kind of go through the list really quick, what I liked and why I was so encouraged. We could start with Malik Neighbors, who his game started off, little shaky. He had an early drop, but he went on to average 13.1 yards on 5 receptions. And he was on the field for every single snap. Now, we didn't see the explosive plays that, he is capable of generating because the Giants didn't try any, but you got to like what you saw from Malik Neighbors. This kid's a keeper, absolutely a keeper. Second round pick, Tyler Nubin, the safety. He was the start at safety opposite of Jason Pinnock, and he didn't come off the field either. Nubin finished with a team leading 7 tackles, and he was especially solid against the run, I thought, just showing a pop and a force in his tackling. And you know what? In thinking about the future, maybe if the Giants want to run a 3 safety look, maybe Nubin becomes that quasi linebacker safety role that right now Isaiah Simmons was projected to have. Maybe that makes Isaiah Simmons expendable when we get a little closer to the trade deadline. I mean, it's just something to put in the back of your mind. The slot cornerback, Drew Phillips, he knocked, I think he forced it. Yeah, he did. He forced the Giants' first turnover, played physical, was sharp with his tackling, especially in the red zone. He forced a 4th down. He contained a running play and just finished his tackles very well. I was very impressed by his play. Tight end Theo Johnson, he surprisingly got the majority of the snaps amongst the 3 tight ends, Daniel Bellinger and Chris Manhertz being the others. And I thought Theo Johnson's blocking was solid. The pass catching is still a work in progress, if we're being honest here, but his blocking, I don't have any complaints about it. I thought it was pretty solid, and it's going to get better. It wasn't perfect. There were a couple times when he was a little, off on his blocks, but for the most part, he came in and he gave them a good effort, moves easily, isn't afraid of contact, and he hits. And when he hits you, you get hit. All right, now let's see. Tyrone Tracy Jr., he ran twice for 2 yards in his NFL debut, was targeted 3 times, caught 1 ball for 5 yards, and he had a drop. Not a very positive debut. The pass pro was also a little shaky, but look, I'm not giving up on Tyrone Tracy. I think as he gets more comfortable in it and gets, learns the finer intricacies of this, remember, he's still kind of new to the running back position. I think he's a work in progress. Darius Mawaso. Darius Mawaso got the surprise start alongside of Bobby Okereke at inside linebacker. Micah McFadden never got, I don't think he ever got on the field. Brian Dable said that the plan was to put McFadden, who is recovering from a groin injury, on a pitch count. But because Mawaso was doing so well, they decided to leave him. So, he left them on the field. And although Mawaso was a little bit vulnerable in coverage, he steadied the ship and he flashed into the backfield. He came down with the second half interception off a deflected ball, finished with 6 total tackles, second behind Newman's team, leaving 7. So I thought he had himself a decent game. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Elijah Chapman, who is an undrafted rookie free agent, started off as a tryout candidate, earned an invitation to training camp, and impressed enough to make the 53-man roster. Chapman received early game run defense with the first team. So showed some nice upfield pushes, I thought, on the interior pass rush. He only had 1 tackle, that coming, I think, on the quarterback sneak. But, all things considered, his limited snaps, I thought the kid played well. And, look, when you look at the future of this Giants team, you want the young talent to really develop, to show that there's promise, to show that, they can be part of the foundation. Giants didn't really get that with their first, draft class under Joe Shane, which is still kind of, up in the air, question mark. But, these last 2 draft classes, that really needs to hit. They really need to take root for the Giants garden to really grow to be a pretty, solid garden. And I thought that this year's draft class, all things considered, they delivered. And I include again Elijah Chapman, the undrafted rookie free agent. So that's, if you're looking for a positive, that's what I got for you. Hopefully that's enough to maybe ease the sting of what happened on Sunday. All right. Coming up next, I've got a question that was posted me by one of my Blue Crew community members, Corey H. It's about Daniel Jones. We're going to revisit this, but Corey asked a question, so we're going to answer that right after this. Hey, Giant fans, you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And in this segment, I'm going to answer a question from my Blue Crew community member, Corey H. If you would like information on how to be a part of the Blue Crew, which is a group of insiders, these are folks that I try to text with on a daily basis. I send them little statistical things, little tidbits, insights, things that you don't see on the podcast or read in my articles. So I try and send them something a little special as part of this little community that we've built up. So Corey H is part of that group. And if you want to be a part of it, the information's in the show notes, or you can visit joinsubtext.com/LockedOnNYGiants. All right, for more information. All right, so Corey's question basically is about Daniel Jones. And he's like, okay, do you think in retrospect that Joe Shane not giving Daniel Jones or not picking up the 5th-year option of Daniel Jones's rookie contract kind of backed him into the corner that he's in today with Daniel? So let me just kind of take you back to this because, I kind of got I spoke to people about this. I had my own theories about it. I ran my theories with these people that would have a little better idea that, what was going on. Here's what happened. Okay. So when Joe Shane and Brian Dable came in, remember, Daniel Jones was coming off of a neck injury, number one. He was inconsistent with his play prior to the neck injury, number two. He was also entering a new system with a new coaching staff, number three. Based on those factors, it was decided that to give Daniel Jones to pick up the fifth year of his option and invest that kind of money, given that the Giants' salary cap at the time, remember, was just absolutely in tatters, given that the team had so many needs, it was felt that, look, let's not do it. We've got, a multi-year rebuild ahead of us. Let's see what happens with the quarterback. If he performs well, we give him a contract. If he doesn't, we move on. So fast forward, we go through 2022, and Daniel Jones has himself a decent year. Okay, leads them to the playoffs. And now, because the Giants did so well, and now they are drafting in the bottom third of the league, guess what? Now they don't have a chance at drafting a quarterback. And they basically are backed into a corner now to where they have to pay Daniel Jones. Now, some of you are like, well, why did they put the franchise tag on him? The answer, folks, Saquon Barkley. So let me take you back to that season, okay? So in 2022, the Giants during the bye week tried to get Saquon Barkley signed to a long-term deal, and they couldn't do it. Saquon turned down an offer. Meanwhile, that year, that same period, when they came back from the bye week, Daniel Jones was asked, and I think it was by me, I think I asked him. I said, did the Giants have conversations with your representatives during the bye as well? And he said, no, they hadn't. That right there, folks, kind of told you what Joe Shane's plan was. And that was to get Saquon under contract so that they did not have to worry about using the franchise tag on him, and that they would have that franchise tag available to use on Daniel Jones. Because Saquon and his representatives kept rejecting contracts, the Giants had no choice but to franchise tag him, because they felt that he was still, a valuable player, still their best player. They figured, okay, we'll franchise tag him. This way he's not going anywhere. That backed them into a corner now to where they had to sign Daniel Jones. Now, some of you could have said, okay, well, you know what? Why didn't the Giants, let Daniel Jones test the market? Why didn't they let him walk? The answer is simple. Because Jones did well in 2022, they figured that was the lesser of two evils, to give him a contract, put an escape hatch in there, which is what they did, and just bring him back. Why restart with a new quarterback? Why have to bring in a new quarterback who maybe isn't as familiar with the system when you can just build on what you started the year prior? So that's what happened. The Giants gave Daniel Jones that 4-year contract for $160 million with a 2-year out. The out coming after this year. That's what happened. I believe, and I've had people, confirm my belief as being accurate, that had the Giants signed Saquon Barkley to a long-term deal, because remember, they took care of Andrew Thomas, they took care of Dexter Lawrence, they took care of their big boys. So all that was left to really do was to take care of Saquon, and Saquon's side did not want to agree to terms with what the Giants were offering, which, as it turned out, in terms of guaranteed money, was $1 million less than what he got from the Eagles. So that's what I believe, Corey, happened with the Daniel Jones decision. So they figured, okay, as I said, in the first segment, the Giants tried to get a replacement for him. And I think, nothing has changed in that regard, and that they will try to get a replacement for him next year. But they probably said to themselves, okay, you know what? If he comes back and he is healthy and he plays as well as he did in 2022, maybe we don't have to worry about this. Maybe we just say, you know what? We'll keep him. We'll keep him another year. We'll redo his cap number, and all will be right with our world. That's a gamble. It's definitely a gamble. But you know what? I'll point you to this, folks. Daniel Jones currently has the highest cap number of anybody on the Giants. The Giants cap situation, because of the spending they've had to do and the operating costs that lay ahead, they can't touch that contract right now. They cannot get any kind of cap relief unless they know Daniel Jones is for sure going to be back here next year, is for sure going to be the guy. And as I said in the first segment, it was obvious they were looking to move on from him. I would not be surprised if nothing has changed in that regard because, look, if you're the coaching staff, if you're Brian Dable, how hard is it to really say, yes, I have confidence in Daniel Jones. Yes, I believe he's our guy. If you don't believe that, you're not going to say it. You're not going to lie. You're going to be like, "Oh, we all have to do better." He ducked the question. I really believe that, that there's some doubt there. Now, again, it's one game into the season. Some people are like, don't panic. It's not a big deal. But it's been a continuation. And I think the Giants are just taking a wait and see approach when it comes to Daniel Jones this year. And we'll see if he can justify, the or not justify, that's not the right word. If he can show everybody, prove his doubters wrong, including any doubters he may have within the Giants building. All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Giants podcast. Again, thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. Don't forget to check out Locked On NFL, the all-new Locked On NFL with Tyler Rowland and Tony Wiggins, two of my dudes. I love those two guys. I love all my hosts here at the Locked On NFL Network. They're all awesome. So hope you will check that program out. We will be back tomorrow. Again, I'll have Cody Alexander on with me, and we will talk Giants defense and Giants in general. So hope you will check that out. Until then, everybody have a great one.